In my last video, I might have shocked you, but you had to see where SAP BW was going. I personally don't want you to struggle with what's coming, but you have to be prepared. And that's why I created the video about where things are moving from SAP BW to SAP BDC. And if you haven't watched it, watch it now. Now, this is part two of that series, so you needed context. And part one shows you the reality. So the link to that video is in the description. In that video, I showed you the new SAP data stack, layer by layer. S4HANA, Datasphere, we talked about Analytics Cloud, Joule, all wrapped into BDC. And I showed you why BW doesn't appear anywhere in that architecture. That video definitely hit a nerve. And I had messages like, okay, Noel, I get it. BW is done. But what do I do now? Where do I start? What do I learn first? How do I protect a career that I've spent 10, 15, 20 years building? Now, that's what this video is. This is a step-by-step transition plan depending on where you're sitting right now. So whether you're a BW consultant or a functional consultant, an analytics person, or a company trying to figure out your talent strategy, there's a path. But that path is different depending on where you're starting from. So let's get into it. So step one is understanding the architecture before you touch any tools. So most consultants make the same mistake. They jump straight into the Datasphere tutorials and they start clicking around in SAC, watch a few YouTube videos on Joule, and they're moving, but they're not going anywhere. And that's like learning how to drive without knowing where the road goes. So before you open a single tool, first you need to understand the architecture. I walked through it in the last video, so go watch that if you haven't. But the short version is that S4HANA generates the transactional data and exposes it through data products. Datasphere integrates that data with non-SAP sources through a semantic business layer built on Databricks. And then SAC is the visualization and the planning front end. Joule becomes the AI layer that turns that data into action. And BDC wraps all of it into one platform. Now, here's why this is important. So I've seen consultants spend 3 months learning Datasphere configuration and then walk into a client meeting and not being able to explain how data flows from S4HANA into a Joule agent. They know the buttons, but they don't know the story. Clients pay for someone who walks into a room and says, here's how your data should flow across your entire landscape. And here's why. That's a $300 an hour conversation. Knowing which menu to click is a $60 an hour conversation. So you need to understand the data products. You need to understand what clean code means. You need to understand why SAP chose Databricks and what the lakehouse layer does underneath Datasphere. You need to understand why they're inquiring Reltio and where the master data fits in. So you need to get the full picture first, and then you start clicking. Now, step two is pick your lane. Now, this is where most people get stuck. They try to learn everything at once, Datasphere and then SAC and then Joule and then BTP and agent design all at the same time. Now, that doesn't work. You spread yourself so thin that you end up mediocre in 5 things instead of being excellent at one. So the BDC ecosystem has distinct roles, right? You need to pick the one that matches where you're coming from and where the market is going. So let me break it down. If you come from a BW background, your lane is the Datasphere architecture. And this is good news actually, right? You already understand the data modeling. You understand how business data needs to be structured for reporting and analysis. You understand transformations. You understand how to think about data quality and performance. Now, those concepts, they transfer. The technology doesn't, but the thinking does. So your job now is to learn how Datasphere handles what BW used to handle. The data federation, data integration, the semantic business layer, how data products flow from S4HANA into Datasphere, and how the Databricks layer, works underneath. Now, how all of these spaces work together, how connections are configured, that's your retraining path. So you're not starting from zero. You have 15 to 20 years of data thinking, so you're applying it to a new platform. Now that's a 6 months transition if you're serious about it, not 5 years, 6 months. And if you come from a functional background, whether you're in MM, SD, FI, CO, PP, your lane is Joule agent design. And honestly, this might be the most valuable lane of all right now. So let me explain why. SAP has 40 Joule agents deployed. Each one needs to understand SAP business processes deeply. So a procurement agent needs to know, how purchase orders works, how goods receipts connect to invoices, how supplier evaluation scores are calculated, how source lists and, quota arrangements affect sourcing decisions. A finance agent needs to understand posting logic, cost center hierarchies, intercompany flows, period end closing sequences. Now, Joule doesn't figure all that out on its own. Someone has to design the agent's logic, someone who understands the business processes deeply enough to tell the AI what to look for, what to flag, what to recommend, and what to escalate to a human. Now, that person is a functional consultant, who learned agent design. Now, that combination barely exists in the market right now. And I'm not exaggerating. Go look at the job boards, go look at LinkedIn. Companies are looking for people who understand the SAP procurement and can design an AI agent. People who can understand SAP finance and can build automated decision workflows. The supply is almost zero. The demand is growing every quarter. So if you're a functional consultant wondering what AI, means for your career, that's your answer. You don't compete with AI. You become the person who tells AI what to do. If you come from an analytics background, SAC, business objects, maybe some BW reporting, your layer is the intelligence layer. Now, analytics isn't going away, but the role is changing. Building dashboards used to be the destination. Now it's the starting point. The most valuable analytics person isn't the one who builds the prettiest dashboard. It's the one who connects the analytics layer to the AI layer, who designs what Joule should surface proactively, who determines, what questions agents should answer before anyone asks, who builds the bridge between the data visualization and the automated decision making. Now, that's the evolution, not more dashboards, smarter systems. So if your entire value right now is building SAC reports, you need to move upstream fast. Learn how SAC connects to Datasphere. Learn how Joule consumes the analytics models. And learn how planning data feeds into the agent logic. That upstream knowledge is what turns a $70 an hour reporting consultant into a $130 an hour intelligence architect. Now, step three is get your hands dirty now. Theory matters, and I just spent 3 minutes on it. But theory without practice is just a conversation. You need to build things. SAP is giving you trial environments available. You have the BTP trial accounts, you have the Datasphere trials, you have the SAC trial access. You don't need a client project to start learning. You need a weekend and a laptop. And I'm serious, just one weekend. Build a simple Datasphere model, connect it to sample data, and expose it through SAC. See how that connection works end to end. Break something, fix it again, do it again. Then try connecting an external data source. See how your federation works versus replication. Try building a simple data product. Now, that hands on experience is worth more than 10 certifications. Now, I'm not against certifications. You need to get them, they open doors, and sometimes clients ask for them. So put them on your LinkedIn. But the person who builds something real in a trial environment and can talk about what went wrong and how they fixed it, that person gets the project over the person who's passed over a multiple choice exam every single time. And document what you build, write about it in LinkedIn, record a quick walkthrough, share what you've learned. That visibility compounds. Now, 6 months of consistent sharing turns you from invisible to someone who's known in your space. Now, I've seen consultants double their rate by just being visible in a niche that barely anyone is in yet. There is your content, BDC implementation stories, Joule agent design walkthroughs. The space is just wide open. Step number 4 is learn to talk about AI like a practitioner and not like a brochure. Now, this one matters more than people realize. So, the market right now is flooded with noise. Everybody's got AI on their LinkedIn headline, AI transformation specialist, AI strategy consultant, AI powered everything. Most of them can't explain what a Joule agent actually does in a business context. So that's noise. Learn what Joule does today, the real version. Learn, the deployed agents. Learn which business processes they cover: procurement, finance, HR, supply chain. Learn what data each agent consumes and where that data comes from. Learn which agents are actually running in production environments versus, which ones are still in controlled pilots. And learn the limitations. Now, this is the part that makes you credible because, there are limitations. Joule agents are only as good as the data underneath it. So if your master data is dirty, the agents produce garbage. So your S4HANA isn't on a recent release, certain data products aren't available. If your landscape is heavily customized, agent logic needs significant adjustment. Now, these are real constraints, real implementation challenges. The consultant who walks into a room and says, here's what Joule can do for your procurement process today, here's what it can't do yet, and here's what your data needs to look like before anything works, and here's the gap analysis we need to run first, that consultant is worth more than 10 people who just say AI is the future. So you need to be very specific, be honest with what works and what doesn't. And that's how you build trust. That's how you build a career that survives the next shift, after this one. Now, step 5 is start today, not next quarter. Today. This is the one that trips up with most people. They wait. They wait for their company to send them on training. They wait for a client project that forces them to learn. They wait for the perfect moment, for things to settle down, for the market to become clearer. That moment doesn't exist. It never does. My friend, the BW consultant from the first video, he waited 3 years, 3 years of steady billing, 3 years of telling himself that he had time. And when he finally started moving into Datasphere and BDC, he told me, Noel, I wish I started the day I mentioned it to him. Now he's catching up. He'll be fine. He's smart and he works very hard, but he's catching up. He's not leading. That's the difference. The person who leads gets the first pick of projects, gets the premium rates, gets to shape how the implementations are done. The person who catches up takes, what's left. The people who are going to come out ahead in the shift, started 6 months ago, and some of them started a year ago. They're all building, Datasphere models. They're already understanding data products. They're already experimenting with Joule. They'll be the ones running BDC implementations in 2027, while everybody is just watching tutorials. Now, the second best time to start is today, not after your current project ends, not when your company approves the training budget, not when you feel ready. You won't feel ready. Nobody does. So start anyway. Quick section for the companies watching. Your talent strategy needs to catch up with your technology strategy. If you're planning a BDC implementation, but your team is entirely BW consultants, who haven't retrained, you have a gap. If you're hiring for Datasphere skills, know that this market is really thin right now. Everybody is learning at the same time. So invest in your existing people, the one, who know your business, your data, your landscape. Give them the time, the resources to transition. A BW consultant who knows your company and learns Datasphere is more valuable to you than a Datasphere consultant who doesn't know your business. But you have to start that investment now, not 6 months, before your go live date. So let me recap the 5 steps, right? Number 1, understand the full architecture before you touch any tools. Number 2 is pick your lane based on where you're coming from. BW goes to Datasphere, functional goes to agent design, analytics goes to the intelligence layer. These are the things that you need to consider. Number 3 is build something real in a trial environment this month. Number 4 is learn Joule's capabilities and limitations so you sound like a practitioner and not like a billboard. And number 5, start today. My friend started 6 months ago. He's moving. He's going to be fine, but he'll be the first one to tell you, don't wait like I did. So where are you right now? Drop it in the comments. Tell me your background and what lane you're thinking about. I read every comment and I'll give you my honest take on your path. Now, that's not a line. I actually do it. So check the comments on my other videos. So thanks for watching. I'm Noel Benjamin DeCosta, and I'll see you in the next one.